Welcome to this podcast. We have a very special guest today, Paul Brody, who is the chairman of Ethereum Enterprise Alliance and global blockchain leader at EY. We also have Vasyl, who is head of business development and partnerships at Gateway. I am going to be the host. I am co-founder and CEO of Gateway. The topic we're going to cover today is about the frontier of adoption of blockchain technology. And there's no one better, according to us, than Paul over here to share his wisdom. He's been in this industry for decades, and
No, single decade. I'm not that off forward. I would say about 12 years.
about 12 years. And over the next 30 to 45 minutes, we'll try to see if we can, get his wisdom, get all the experience in terms of the adoption, what are the friction points has been, and get some guidance for the future roadmap. And at the same time, Vasyl will probably give his insights on the Web3 very native ecosystem and how the ecosystem is collaborating. And then towards the end, we'll try to find how these two spaces merge. So without further ado, let's get started. So I would just say welcome to both of you, and just start with the casual question, like how has been DevCon so far, and what are your thoughts have been? Because it's been a long 1 week or maybe more, and I know it's coming to an end, but then would love to understand, get your insights about like how this DevCon has been so far.
This is my fourth DevCon, and it is by far, I think it's easily double the size of the last one. It is amazing. As somebody else said, the vibes are immaculate.
Yeah.
It's just a different environment. So 2 years ago, we were in Bogota, but we were kind of knee deep in this like crypto recession, crypto winter. And now we are at the beginning of what I've been talking to clients about is not just a crypto summer, but a really, what is going to be a multi-decade crypto summer and blockchain summer. So it's really good. The level of optimism is amazing. And what is especially good and different about the Ethereum ecosystem, you can go to crypto conferences all over the place. What is unique and special about Ethereum is that here, everyone is building something. It is really exceptional. People are the roll up your sleeves, I'm going to build something environment.
Yeah, thanks for the insight, and I do agree with that. Like it's just not summer, but we are into some sort of an inflection point over here, and things are coming together. So what's the same question for you? And I know on a personal level, like you've been super busy, and it's been a very hectic week as well for you. So how's DevCon for you been?
Yeah, but it was, it was a good type of busy, right? Because a lot of meetings, right? And DevCon, this is the first DevCon for me, so I cannot compare it to the previous years. But what I can say, this is a very good combination of the business and like highly technical people who really believe in the Ethereum ecosystem. So I got like a lot of insights, right? A lot of new projects like fully forward encryption layer 2 on Bitcoins, all of these stuff are coming together and people are building, people exciting. And you can see the market are growing because people are smiling. They're like going, like checking their balances. Like a lot of people are trading. So overall, like very, very positive and very solid teams. And agree with you, a lot of new project I'm building.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So just to stay on this point, what you mentioned about like the DevCon is after 2 years gap, and obviously you've been tracking the whole ecosystem. And by the way, thank you so much for being so vocal about this Ethereum ecosystem and trying to bring the adoption from the traditional markets as well. Really impressed by your open sourcing Nightfall and Starlight as well. So I mean, the community is very appreciative of that. So if you just focus on those 2 years, from last DevCon to this DevCon, what do you think have been the key achievements of the community or this ecosystem? And so that's one aspect. And maybe you can highlight like some things which you were expecting the ecosystem to be there today and it's not been there. Maybe you can highlight or focus on that as well, or just, at least guide us or give some insights.
So the really big achievement of Ethereum ecosystem is it has become the dominant programmable blockchain ecosystem. And if you were to go back 2 years, I think there was a lot more doubt at least in some quarters, about whether or not Ethereum could make it. And there was, the merge had not yet happened. And so Ethereum was still approaching the merge. People were still saying, can they really do it? They've been talking about it for years. In the last 2 years, I would say two tremendously important things have happened. First of all, the merge happened. And for years and years and years, people have been saying, Ethereum says they're going to do this, but are they really going to do it? And what I've been trying to communicate to business leaders and CEOs who are thinking about going into a blockchain environment is that Ethereum is different from all the others. Ethereum is a particularly mature organization, and it's very deliberate. It's very careful. Ethereum does these upgrades on a pretty regular basis, and they do them without drama. And I remember the night of the merge, I was in this place called Zuzala. It was like a pop-up kind of Ethereum community that lasted for several months. And they were having a big merge party. Vitalik was there. Everybody was there. We're going to have a big merge party. And honestly, I'm kind of an early bed to kind of guy. And I just thought, you know what? I have absolute confidence in Ethereum. I went to bed. I woke up in the morning. Everything was fine, right? Ethereum does really mature, seamless improvements. That's the first big thing that's happened. The second big thing that's happened is that the whole ecosystem of infrastructure around security, KYC, identity, layer 2 networks, it's matured so much that the tools are now all there. They're not perfectly integrated yet, but the tools and capacity are there for the entire business world to start doing business at an industrial scale on the Ethereum ecosystem.
That's a great answer. Thanks for the insight. So just saying on that, would like to also congratulate you on your position as being an EEA chair. On a personal note, the EEA Industry Day has been tremendous success, and we met many of the folks in the ecosystem, and they've been talking about this as well. A lot of our teammates have been there. Great talk, great job posting it as well. Would be good to give you some insights about how do you see EEA evolving, and what are your plans and vision for Ethereum Enterprise Alliance for the near future, and some guidance would be great for the community.
My goal for the EEA is the way I've come to see our mission is our job is to onboard the business community. And right now we're spending a fair amount of time re-energizing the Ethereum community about working with enterprise customers. And I feel like the industry day that we had on Monday kind of checked that box. I got a lot of good feedback, and thank you for your kind words. My next goal is to take the conversation to industry. So instead of having our next big event at an Ethereum ecosystem program, my goal is to work with a bunch of the companies in the ecosystem to take our message to a big traditional business venue, an ERP vendor conference, a industry kind of supply chain conference, or a banking conference, and talk to the people who we want to onboard, who are going to be net new to the ecosystem and are asking themselves, which blockchain ecosystem should I use? How can I think about it? My goal is to grow the pie on the enterprise side, and that's where I think we're going to be headed. We'll certainly keep having Ethereum events. We're going to work really hard on networking, and then we're sort of incubating on another little side project, which is something I'm calling the Ethereum Industry Index. And the goal is to start to put together a really comprehensive directory of all the companies doing business in the Ethereum ecosystem, all the different sectors they're operating in, and start to build a quantitative index of business activity by sector.
That's interesting. I think we'll touch on that's very interesting. We'll touch on the sectors in a bit, but maybe we'll go to Vasyl and talk about this whole L2 centric roadmap and this roll-ups coming up and L2s. What has been your experience? Because you've been engaging with some of, let's say, Web3 native clients, right? So just talking about that and setting up that context, so is there a demand picking up in L2s specifically, or is there still some, I would say, investigation, exploration that's happening from different projects, whether they need their L2s or not? So if you can share some of your experience, that'd be very useful.
Yeah, 100%. I believe L2 rollups, this is ultimate tool to scale Ethereum, right? And like I've heard a couple of feedbacks that like how the future of Ethereum is gonna look if you have like a lot of L2s. Like Ethereum will struggle because they will not get the revenue, right? The gas key is gonna be lower, and then everybody will spin up their L2 rollup, and then like it's not gonna be like today. I think it's totally wrong because every L2 rollup will still do the settlement on Ethereum, right? So the transactions on Ethereum, they're quite costly and the throughput is quite low, right? So you have to do that, especially for specific use cases. Right? So right now we see basically three types of the customer that are coming to do the rollups. The first one, they have a lot of transactions on L2 or L1, and they have like a lot of fees they're paying there. So it's financial incentive to launch the rollup. The second type of the customers, the one who is looking for some customization that cannot be done on the public chains, like privacy, like fast penalty, time with the blocks, maybe some custom gas token, and so on. And the third type of the customers, there's of course like a new startups that are coming and they're looking for the narrative. And the L2 is a perfect foundation for them because you have like a L2 ZK VM with AI, with DP, and you put everything together like in the soup, right? And then investors like this narrative, and it's a future-proof solution, right? So you build the ecosystem on top and it drives the company value up, right? So the demand is picking up, and we have the pipeline full until the new year. And I'm also a big believer in disposable rollups. For example, you have event like DevCon, and then you do the ticketed system, you deploy your rollup, it's take to 10 minutes, then you put the smart contracts there, you organize the event, and then after the event, you duplicate the rollup because everything went L1, right? So you don't need to run it. And it's so easy to do. Like my mom could deploy the rollup, but she couldn't set up the MetaMask wallet, right? So that's also everything.
Yeah, that's great insight, and thanks for that. Maybe like on this whole L2 century roadmap, we probably come to now, Paul. But before that, I would like to again congratulate you and express our gratitude on Ethereum for Business. Coming from the digital market myself, I would say TradFi and trying to be in this ecosystem. This was the book I was looking for when I was on, I would say, other side of the pond. And I think again, tremendous job by writing this up and putting this together for the C-levels, C-suite. I think I do believe it's a great book, and just recommendation for everyone. If anybody's listening out there, you should read it. I recommend to all my friends in the traditional market. Just a quick thing, like what made you write this book essentially, right? But I think I've answered it, but it would be great to hear that point from you.
First of all, it was great flattery, right? I mean, Gateway, you guys are very, very technically competent. And I didn't write the book for people who are extremely technical.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, I don't think I can explain anything to you about how Ethereum works. What I wanted to explain really was to traditional business executives. They're like, hey, I've heard about this blockchain Ethereum thing. Is it any good? Can I use it for anything? What can I use it for? And after like 10 years of explaining Ethereum, explaining what's important about it, explaining there's some conversations that keep recurring. What's it good for, right? Why do you need to have a public blockchain? Yes. Right? Why do you need privacy? There's so many misconceptions. And one of my favorite ones that happens all the time is a lot of people think, for example, that if it's a private blockchain, it has privacy. It doesn't.
Yes.
Private blockchains don't have privacy. They're not usually really even blockchains. But the whole point of having a blockchain, and this is where I might disagree with you a little bit, Vasyl, about your idea that you could have like disposable rollups. The whole point of having a blockchain is this idea that there's a credibly neutral ecosystem in which you can interact with all your other business partners. And that's really, really powerful because B2B integration is the single hardest problem that enterprises face today.
Yes.
Before I came to EY and took on blockchain, before I went down this blockchain rabbit hole, meeting Vitalik at 12 years ago and figuring out that it was transformational, I worked in traditional large enterprises, especially in supply chain. And the thing about the last 30 or 40 years is the world's biggest companies have deployed ERP systems inside their four walls, and they've gotten really good at managing their business. The problem is that most of their business increasingly exists outside their four walls, right? Apple doesn't make any phones themselves. Google doesn't make any phone themselves. Sony doesn't make televisions. TSMC doesn't make phones. Every company is really part of this massive extended supply chain. And the biggest challenge is, how can I integrate together, and how can I do it? How can I do it in a way where I'm not at a perpetual disadvantage because I am a minor player in somebody else's digital ecosystem? There are lots of companies that have tried to build these like centralized marketplaces and infrastructure. The problem is, no company wants to hand over their sensitive business information, their critical operational data, and put it in the hands of some third party who's going to exploit it.
Yeah.
Blockchain offers a neutral space in which we can have shared information and shared business process, and we can do business on a completely level playing field in a completely standardized way. And you can serve all of your customers, all of your suppliers, and work alongside all of your competitors, and no one has an unfair information advantage.
No, and that's great explanation. And thanks for explaining the reasoning for writing this book. And again, it helps. It has been helpful for Gateway, if we can say it that way, like going to help with the strategy and our mental model as well. For me, like I remember I was in a flight and I was reading your book while having a coffee, and I was enjoying it. And one of the line was like, blockchain will do it for the enterprise ecosystem what ERP did for one enterprise. For me, I just then just put the book down, and I was really, really thinking through that. And for me, that was a really good reference point just to sort of share it. So again, thank you so much for putting that across, because it's important for you to know that actually it impacts, and there are people who are reading this, and hopefully they can join you in this collective vision as well. Again, thanks. So with that in mind, now going back to this L2-centric roadmap, now the question coming to the point is, enterprises, and again, you have been very advocate of public blockchain, and ultimately enterprise has to be a public blockchain, and that's great. What stops them from using, let's say, whether the L2 adoption will come to the enterprises, or do you see some sort of a different solution being adopted?
So there are a number of big obstacles that are keeping enterprises outside of the blockchain space right now. One of them that has sort of diminished gradually over time in a really good way is regulatory uncertainty, right? EY has been auditing companies with crypto and digital assets on their balance sheets for years. We've been trying to tell a very constructive story, like, hey, you can do this, right? It's not unreasonably risky. Secondly, the whole so that's been an obstacle, regulatory clarity, which has improved enormously, especially in the last 10 days or so. Secondly, privacy, right? Privacy is very important. Blockchains are great as a level public playing field. However, enterprises don't want to be sharing that sensitive data. It's taken a long time to really mature privacy, and it's taken a long time to get it to a price that works. At my very first DevCon, we showed off a version of EY's privacy technology. And at that time was the initial prototype. It cost us $100 in gas fees to execute a single transaction. And as we looked at that and was like, that is not sustainable. Like we're not going anywhere with that. It's a cool demo. It's not going anywhere. Here we are, I think 6 years later, 6 years and 3 DevCons later, or maybe more than that because of COVID, and we're now able to transact under a penny. So privacy at scale was really important. And then the last obstacle is complexity.
Yeah.
So enterprises often ask me like, hey, do I have to hire like a bunch of additional people? The answer is you shouldn't have to. It's still too complex, right? But I think we're getting much, much closer to the point where any reasonable enterprise developer holding onto API documentation can plug their company into a public blockchain ecosystem and do so with reasonable levels of privacy and confidence about security. So we're getting there, but those are the big 3 obstacles that have slowed down adoption.
Thanks. Vasyl, coming to you. in terms of thinking about, let's say, privacy and let's say ZK zero knowledge, do you see in the Web3 ecosystem projects or protocols trying to now inquire or focus on ZK? And you see that trend shifting from, let's say, optimistic or more towards, let's say, ZK itself?
Yes, but before answering your question, I would like to point out one thing. I don't know how, like, I cannot count how many times I've been asked, like, oh, you're doing ZK rollups, meaning that it's private. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Everything is public. That's the whole idea of the blockchain. ZK components actually generate the proof and settle to L1, right? So you don't know what's going on in L2, that you don't need to know it, but it's not private. And then people have this perception that if you use ZK, it's like a privacy out of the box, right? And like, this is something that we have to educate people, and that, like, thanks to your book, and I believe that you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that the general consensus that ZK, this is the future, right? Because that's how you get the ultimate security without relying on the community. So you just have to trust the mathematical formula instead of trusting the community to channel their transaction, to do this fraud proofs. And this is where I personally believe that the world is moving to. But one of the things that is playing against ZK rollups is just, it's very new, right?
Yeah.
And people doesn't have enough trust. It's not battle tested, but it's changing over time. Another thing, it's infrastructure cost. It's easier and cheaper to deploy optimistic rollups. ZK is like a way more complex. Very few teams in the market can actually do that. And they'll go, we're going to wait a little bit. And then so far it's just optimistic rollouts, but then we're going to add like a ZK as maybe a separate layer. We will add privacy as another layer. Maybe we're going to migrate to ZK, right? That's the thing.
So actually you're in many ways describing our own evolution. So we've been at EY, so we've been working on privacy for a long time, and we've been working on zero knowledge-based privacy, and that's been a big item of confusion. People are like, so ZK rollup, doesn't zero knowledge mean privacy? And in our case, it actually does, right? In most others, it doesn't. However, Nightfall, our ZK privacy solution, is actually a version 3 that we deployed, is a ZK optimistic rollup. And so we use a zero knowledge for privacy, but we use the optimism to keep the gas prices down, right? To keep the transaction costs down. Version 4, which we showed the prototype of a few months ago at our global summit, version 4 is a ZK rollup. One use of zero knowledge for privacy, and a second for instant finality. And the reason we're able to do that is performance of ZK, like the math, the algorithms, everything related to it has improved so much. Like, we calculated our own system performance is about 10,000 times higher than it was when we started. And I don't think without the improvements in the algorithms and the mathematical skills that we would be able to do like a ZK rollup with instant finality and extremely low transaction costs.
So just staying on this privacy topic, there's an interesting question, I think, because we had some debate internally in our organization, and the same question asked to you on the stage. I'll probably, for our viewers, I'll repeat the same question to you. Like, when we speak of privacy, the question with respect to enterprises, whether enterprise privacy contracts face scrutiny from regulators. And it would be good to get your thoughts around that, right? Because there has been some concerns around this mixes and everything as well. So I think that's very enlightening for the industry also to sort of hear from you, to sort of set the context. And I think it should go out to as wide an audience as possible. So
yeah, that's a great question. I love it when people ask it to me, because they're like, hey, zero knowledge privacy stuff, isn't that like for like money laundering us? I think, like, you need to understand, I work in an accounting firm. We are as risk averse and as regulatory compliant as it's possible to be. And we've been talking to regulators about our privacy technology for about 7 years. And we have been very careful about a couple of important things. Number one, we are very clear, privacy and anonymity are not the same thing. Yeah. So enterprises are not trying to transact anonymously. What they're trying to do is keep the details of their business transactions from their competition. So when we designed Nightfall, one of the things that we built into it is an identification requirement. You cannot use Nightfall, A, unless you're an enterprise, and B, unless you have an enterprise identity certificate that's been issued by one of the Internet Certificate Authorities. These are technically, they're known as X.509s, but they're really useful because they're a globally accepted standard, and in quite a few countries, including the United States, they have the legal standing of a binding enterprise digital signature. And so that means in order to get one of these, you've had to prove that you're a real company. You've had to pass the basic sanction screening test. I'm very careful not to say that it's at the same level of AML. This is not an anti-money laundering tool. It is a useful identity tool. It is a binding contract. It can be used for a legally binding contract, and that's really important. And regulators can see from the outside, they can see who is transacting on Nightfall. They cannot see what you are doing, but they can see who is transacting, and they could come to you and say, listen, we see you're transacting a lot in this environment. We'd like to have some understanding of what you're doing. Not only can you show them, but you can actually prove to them mathematically that the data you're giving them is truthful.
Yeah.
So far, we have never had any negative pushback from regulators.
Awesome.
And so that's been really positive. We've listened to them very carefully in terms of the things that they think are important. We actually have a function which individual users will be able to implement in the future, which will allow them to copy an auditor or a regulator on a transaction. And I want to be very clear, by the way, copying somebody on a transaction, sort of CCing them on a transaction, is absolutely not the same as a backdoor. EY has no ability to see the data that goes into the transactions on Nightfall. The code is all public domain, open source, and independently audited. So we are committed to really extreme transparency in the development of this software.
Oh, great. Thanks for this detailed answer, because I think it's very, very important for everyone to understand and the difference between privacy and anonymity. So a bit of segueing to that now, with this tools in place and let's say innovation are taking place, which industry sectors do you think are thought leaders in blockchain adoption, or do you think some sectors are still ahead, or what kind of experimentation or innovation is happening? Would be good to get your insights, because you're at the forefront of that.
So one of the things I talk a lot about is, okay, what is it that companies need to do? And basically all business-to-business agreements boil down to, I got money, you have stuff, and I'd like to exchange. I know you're laughing because I do this all the time on a broken record, but it's money for stuff under the terms of an agreement.
Yeah.
And the money can be tokenized and the stuff can be tokenized and the agreement can be turned into a smart contract. So doing all of those things together is relatively challenging, right? And I'll be honest, we know how to do it and we prototyped it, but it's not fully scalable. Our strategy is crawl, walk, run. So we're looking for the use cases where people are happy with one piece or the other. So one of the first ones that we have is we're doing product traceability. Create tokens, move them around under privacy, enable a company in a supply chain to see where all their stuff is, their orders are, things like that. We just finished doing a pilot for a big company, literally like raw materials, I joke, dirt, to the data center, right? Each thing tokenized, all of it running under privacy on public Ethereum. So that's taking the stuff and moving it around, right? That's a really a good step. We have a second project underway that uses an application called Starlight, and Starlight allows you to create private smart contracts. That one doesn't move any money or stuff, but it calculates amount owed. And in this case, the first one that we picked to do was renewable energy purchasing. So my goal is to get each one of these capabilities, money, stuff, and business logic, running independently with privacy, and then start to combine them together. The ultimate goal is that you'll be able to build basically a model of your business on chain, handle all of your routine business contracts, payments, receipts, invoices, all of that kind of thing under full privacy on a public chain.
Vasyl, this in terms of going to you, what kind of use cases and projects you're seeing, and what kind of sectors in Web3 are you catering to? That's one. And second, maybe you can also give a bit more insight about like platform as a service thesis, right? Which you see the evolution on for gateway software.
Yeah. So in terms of the use cases, this is like for Web3, it's like a wide variety of use cases. We have customers for building games on like rollups of Mystic rollups, CKV and rollups where you kind of like transact in the game, like I pass you the helmet or some, I don't know, some skin in the game, right? And everything do it in the blockchain. So if you get banned by the blockchain, but by the game developer, you still have your assets on the wallets, you know, and stuff like that. Another use case can be interoperability, right? Where the blockchain creates like a aggregation layer that connects like different components, and then like it's like a common denominator, and then you can transact there like from one chain to another, from one wallet to another. Chain abstraction, this is a huge narrative, and people are building chain for that to kind of make the internet of the blockchains where you have like one address across all of the chains, and then you just send the money from like a one email through the account abstraction to another email like on another chain, right? We have people for doing proof of humanity, digital identity. We have use cases like AI, right? So AI is a perfect example because you have like a huge network of hardware, right? And you have to incentivize users somehow to actually want this hardware. You have to incentivize user to actually train the AI models and so on. DeepIn is a very huge thing, right? Decentralized digital infrastructure where you have Wi-Fi access points around the globe, right? Or you have proof of your geolocation and so on. So the use cases are endless there, right? It's just like the matter of like of your fantasy, right? Of your like capability to create something new. And but yeah, it's everything.
That's great to hear, and thanks for that. And how are you supporting this sort of evolution, like with representing Gateway? Like what is Gateway doing to be supportive of this evolution of the ecosystem in Web3?
That's a great question. Our thesis in Gateway that you do business, we do blockchain, right? We remove the complexity from the foundation level, from the infrastructure level for our customers and for our partners. So we build a platform that allows you to deploy L2 chain with all of the necessary tooling. And it's so easy, as I said, like it's just like a 10 minutes. So it's like building the websites right now. You go to the constructor, you put like data availability, software stack, time between the blocks, privacy, block explorer, different components. There, you press deploy, and then in 10 minutes, you have your chain ready to use, right? Without extra hassle. If you need the indexer, you press it there, 15 minutes, you get the indexer. If you need the Oracle, same thing, account abstraction, multi-sig wallet. If you're not happy with centralized solution, we have the set of partners, we have the special deals with them. So you just like we support you in any way possible, just to make sure that you as a customer, you don't care about the infrastructure because it's worth policy, right? If you're talking to us, meaning we're doing the bad job, right? Because ideally, you want to make sure that use blockchain, you forget about this foundational layer.
Right. This is a theme I've talked about a lot in my discussions with Ethereum Foundation and other companies. Is really, really successful infrastructure really ultimately becomes invisible. Yeah. Nobody really thinks about it. They don't know. They don't care. Nobody knows whether nobody knows when they go to an ATM machine or they log into a website, whether it runs on AWS or Google Cloud or anything else. They don't know. They don't care. They don't have to. Yeah. Right. We need to get to that point in the world of blockchain where it's pretty much invisible because it works so well. And things become invisible when they work well enough that you don't have to spend a lot of time paying attention to them, and they're packaged in such a way that there's what is actually very complex feels really simple.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that's a great insight from both of you. Because I was also listening to a panel for unifying Ethereum. There was Vitalik, there was Base, Arbitrum, and Optimus, and ultimately this one line was there like, ultimately in the next few years they want to fade away in the background, right? Nobody should even know talk about Ethereum or L2s. I will probably ask this is like, do you see explosion of L2s or you do see some consolidation? That may be the question for you. How do you see this evolving, this whole L2-centric evolution which we're seeing right now, and what's your thesis going forward?
I see some degree of consolidation, but also I see much more differentiation. Right now, like 60% of the L2s out there are universal L2s.
Yeah.
And the other 40% who claim to be RWA L2s or AI L2s or gaming L2s have no underlying differentiation. This is going to be, by the way, I think it will become a challenge for you guys, right? It's not that everybody wants to run the same kind of L2. We need some level of differentiation. And I'll give you a good example. Some of our industrial clients want to move up to 2 million NFTs a day, right? So that's for one product line. If you have a package of medicine and it's serialized and you turn it into an NFT, you're going to move that around. The interesting thing about sort of tracking inventory using NFTs is if somebody steals your NFTs, they've not stolen your inventory. They've corrupted your data. So if you ask me like, hey, on the scale of, say, security versus cost, I would say I'm willing to sacrifice some level of security for incredibly low gas fees because I am going to be clocking up a mind-boggling number of transactions. You know, a single product line, 2 million a day, that's like 750 million NFT transactions a year, right? Those transactions better be cheap, right? On the other hand, when I pay an invoice, if I pay you a $50,000 invoice, I want a very high level of security. I want absolute confidence that the money is going to the business partner that I thought it was going to, that it's being paid correctly. So I have a different perspective there. I'm much more willing to pay a much higher gas fee for a high level of confidence around the security, the low risk of theft, and so on. If you think about a traditional finance transaction like a credit card payment, it's not just a payment, it's actually a bundle of services. There's a payment, there's chargebacks, there's insurance, there's frequent flyer miles. Like that's all bundled into the package. Right now, we don't have a lot of these choices, but I think the future of L2s is, I don't know that it's a lot fewer L2s, but the market will look like an environment of much more differentiation.
No, thanks for insight. And I think, again, this is one of the topics which we have been thinking about, as well as you said, like this is something which we have to be mindful and have to track as a business ourselves. Vasyl, what are your thoughts? And after listening to Paul and like, how do you see this evolve there?
I'm gonna tell you my dream, like how I see L2s communicate between each other. You know, when you Google something, all right, you have like a bunch of links, right, in a Google. You have like a one website, second, third. And you don't care that this website uses like this programming language, this website is hosted on this infrastructure, it just works. And then from the Google, you go to one, you surf internet, right? So I believe in the future is going to be a lot of L2s and they're going to interact together in the seamless way, right? Like the internet. Right? That's what I want, that the world that I want to live. And I believe that where Web3 is heading to.
So one challenge that we don't have figured out yet is, in order to make that vision come true, you have to have composability and smart contracts operating under privacy across multiple L2s.
Yes.
Honestly, we don't know how to do that yet. Right now, I think for the people who want composability and privacy, it's going to end up being in a single chain environment. And those are going to be the outer parameters. And then if you want to go to another chain environment, you're going to have to move your tokens across. I will say, I mean, I don't rule out this possibility in the future because so many of the things that we thought we would not be able to do 6 or 7 years ago, in terms of like zero knowledge with privacy without constantly having to do setup ceremonies and keys, like what we can do now is not just cheaper and faster, but it's way simpler. So I think we could see that. I'm not enough of a mathematician to know if it will happen, but I believe the value of a blockchain is being in an ecosystem where things are composable and you can add business logic. And I think anything that puts sand in that, grit in the complexity, adds complexity or makes it impossible to have like simple composability and business logic between things, will not take off, at least in the medium term.
100% agree. And I think one of the reasons why AI took off like recently, because it was easy to use. You go to the website, you type the command, you don't need to know the language, you don't need to log in everything, but just boom, and it's there. And I got 1 billion users right now. The Web3 failed miserably there. We are talking about the first billion users, but first we should get to the first million users, the proper users, by removing this complexity, by making it easier, like removing the sand from the gears, as we said.
Well said. Thanks. Thanks for the insight. So we're nearing to the end. Just a last question before we wrap up. I think I'm just using the same question you asked in your panel is like, what are the key themes for the next 2 or 3 years you see in terms of the use cases, right? Basically, like question for both here.
So for me, like for sure, one thing that's going on right now is a gargantuan stablecoin explosion.
Yeah.
Right. We have hit like a sort of industrialization point on stablecoin payments, and they're just going to take off like a rocket. And so that's one thing. And we're going to see also like a bit of a stablecoin boom as well. Or sorry, stablecoins and RWA, real world assets. I am excited for the world of real world assets to move beyond like treasury bonds. Right. Which still sort of feel like a not quite real world asset. Like I want to see vehicles, real estate, like real world assets. So I'm quite excited about that. There'll be a lot of that kind of thing. Though we're headed into a golden age of experimentation with digital assets. The big problem we're going to have right now, and I sort of call this like the new blockchain trilemma. So the old one was technical. The new one is about regulatory approval, products, and customers. You can have any two. And what's happening right now is you've got a lot of like new Web3 native firms. They've got some cool tokenized products. They've got some early regulatory approval. What they don't have is, say, access to 20 or 30 million potential investor customers. And then you've got some more traditional banks and other enterprises. They understand the regulatory process really well. They have a huge number of customers. They're trying to figure out, with whom do I partner? What should I offer them? And one thing that is particularly important that we need to develop over the next years, and this is not me forecasting, this is me wishing, or well, I would say I'm gonna try to make this happen. We need an intellectual revolution around investing. Historically, all the investment guys, you go to any investment manager, they're going to say, hey, you need some stocks, right? Index funds, and you need bonds. That is an academically proven investment mix. And if you want to retire safely, you're going to follow this kind of good programmatic advice. In a world where you can tokenize anything, we don't actually have a lot of really good qualitative or quantitative academic data and says, how much tokenized Thai real estate should you have in your portfolio? I don't think anybody knows. We don't know what people want to buy. We can tokenize anything. What do they want to buy? What would make sense to put in their portfolio? We are going to be going through a huge phase of experimentation over the next couple of years. In parallel with that, there's going to be a lot of maturing of the ecosystem tools that support regulatory compliance. As the rules become clearer, it'll be also much clearer, like, okay, you need this kind of identity information, you need this kind of traceability, that kind of thing. So those are going to be the big booms. Other things are incubating along the way, right? Previously, we had an NFT boom, we had a cryptocurrency boom. The next big wave are stablecoins and real-world assets. Other things are incubating in the background while that's happening, but I think the next 2 years, I strongly suspect belong to stablecoins and real-world assets.
Perfect. Thanks for the insight, and thanks for sharing the wisdom. Essentially, like just bring the cost of experimentation down, because that's something which we strongly believe at Gateway as well. Vasyl, like to you now, like what do you see as the next like key themes for the next couple of years?
Yeah, maybe they're going to be a little bit controversial. I completely agree with what you said, right? But I want to add, like, from my point of view, from like Web3, what I see a lot of use of blockchain in metaverses, right? Because just people are spending more time online, right? And if you spend in metaverse like 8 hours per day, for you, the assets there is as valuable as the assets in real world, right? And you want to make sure that you provide the ownership there, that you actually own this stuff. Nobody can take it away from you, right? Another thing related to RWA is like a carbon credits. It's a massive market that will boom in like Web3. Also, one of the use cases that I personally would like to see happening in Web3 is actually a voting system, or you can have everything on chain. right? Just to make sure that you kind of fight the corruption, you remove the people who are actually watching you voting, right? Then you have like a ZK chain with a privacy layer on top, and then you make the system of voting easy, I don't know, using your digital banking or like ATMs, and then everything is written in the blockchain. Another thing that I've heard people start talking more and more is actually to use the blockchain as a database, right? Because apparently it is database, but you cannot put like a gigabytes of data there. And then I believe in maybe in horizon of 5 years, you'll be able to actually have these shared huge databases, have everything on chain, and the technology is going to be there so you can extract this data from the chain.
Well, we are starting to see, I've seen some prototypes of, or early versions of what people are calling data chains, which are quite interesting, but we're in, I think, kind of in the early stages of that. They haven't proven their scalability and their value proposition yet.
Okay, fair point. But like, again, maybe we are not there, but it's definitely use case for this particular application. So
Great. And what do you guys think of gaming? Like, I think probably that aligns with metaverse and gaming as well.
yeah, gaming, again, like the same as in metaverse. Like if you're a gamer, for you, this asset as important as the real world assets, right? And like you see like a big gaming studio like Ubisoft, like they are bullish on creating the chain and can't unify of the games. So if you have the coins in one game, why can't you spend it in another one, right? So you were working so hard, gaming so hard, and you want to bring this asset to another game. And then why you can't sell it in some third-party marketplaces? And then with the chains, with the logic, with the smart contract, you can actually make sure that regardless where you sell them, like, or you just gifted them, you're going to pay some small fee to the game owner, to the creators, and we're all going to benefit out of it, right? So that's a big thing for sure. Right now, we don't have the good games in the Web3, let's be honest, right? They're all like a play to earn. It's not sustainable, right? And they're not fun to play, right? And when you add this kind of like a play to earn component, you remove fun and it's becoming your work, right? And nobody likes to work.
We are still, I think, across all of Web3, we are still over-indexed on these like very simple incentives, which is like, do this and we'll give you money, right? We'll give you points, we'll give you money, we'll give you tokens. Like I know I don't like those because I think they pervert the incentives and really you want people to play for the game. You want people to execute their transaction because of its business value, not because of like some kind of cash-like reward that they might be seeing at the end of the tunnel. Right. And maybe we'll know that we've hit like this perfect maturity and adoption state when those kinds of incentives kind of fade away.
Perfect. Thanks. Thank you so much. And this has been extremely insightful. And thanks for making time and sharing your thoughts. And hope to see you soon, Paul. And thank you so much. That's a wrap. Thank you.